All right. We are heading into our last presentation of serious oral interpretation, and that is Lexine. Let's welcome her to the stage. She will be performing Amanda and the Wounded Birds by Colby Rodowsky.
Judges ready? Timer ready? It's not that my mother doesn't understand, because she does. In fact, she understands so well that half the time she goes around with a glazed look in her eyes and forgets to get her hair cut, and that we're almost out of toilet paper. She makes her living understanding. You see, my mother is Emma Hart, a psychotherapist, which means that she tries to help people who call into her on the radio find ways of dealing with their problems. Communication, emotional support, shared interests. These are the things you'd expect a mother and daughter to have. But what happens when a mother is so emotionally invested in other people that she forgets to care for her own kid? Amanda and the Wounded Birds by Colby Rodowsky. I never will forget that first show. I mean, there was my mother's voice coming out of our kitchen radio, sounding slightly frantic and giving those first callers more than what they bargained for. After only a month on the air, the Emma Hart show went from 1 hour to 2. Mom really cared about the people who telephoned her, and almost from the beginning, she was calling them her wounded birds. Not on the air, of course, and never to anyone else but me. And I learned not to joke around. Once I referred to one of her callers as a fractured canary and almost started World War III. Mom was busier than she had ever been before, what with traveling and lecturing and doing guest shows from other cities. Sometimes I felt that life was nothing but a revolving door. Mom was coming out while I was coming in. I know there are some kids who would have thought I was lucky, but the thing is about my mother is that she's okay. And I wanted to see more of her. Besides that, I needed to talk to her. I don't know why, but all of a sudden it seemed that things were piling up around me. My friend Terry has a secret crush on my boyfriend Josh. And if she does, it would be a disaster because how could we really be friends anymore? But then again, how could Terry and I not be friends? Then there's Miss Bellman, my English teacher, who has this really atrocious breath and is forever leaning into people as she recites poetry in class. Imagine somebody breathing garbage fumes on you as she reads Emily Dickinson. And I was coming out of gym on my way to study hall when Mr. Burnside, the guidance counselor, stopped me and started asking me what my career goals were in college. What I said, only politer, was that how did I know what I wanted to major in when I didn't even know where I wanted to go to college? Mr. Burnside got a wild look in his eyes, and then he lectured me on how I was going about this whole college thing the wrong way. And, anybody else would have to call her on the telephone. Why not? Why not? And pretty soon, why not? Change to when? Once I made a call Dr. Emma Hart, I began to feel like a wounded bird myself. And I was suddenly awfully glad that she cared about them the way that she did. I put the call in, just before 11 on the Monday morning of spring vacation. I heard my voice, as if it were coming from somewhere far away. Giving my name as Claire, it's my middle name, and outlining my problem. And all of a sudden, I was talking to my own mother and telling her how I couldn't talk to my mother. Dr. Hart let me go on for a while, and then she broke in and said that it was important for me to know that My concerns were as real as anybody else's. What I had to do was be really upfront with her and let her know how I felt. Then she suggested that I make a date with my mother for lunch so that I could tell her, Mom, exactly what I told her, Dr. Emma Hart. The only trouble was that as soon as Mom got home that day, I knew it wasn't going to work. She was sort of coming unglued. It had been a bad day. Right away, I knew I was going to break rule number 1. I knew I wasn't going to be able to be upfront. I couldn't take what was already one rotten week for Mom and dump my problems, which seemed to be getting bigger by the minute, on her. I felt like I was going to explode. And by Friday, I knew I needed another talk with Dr. Hart. And there was Dr. Emma Hart again. And suddenly, there I was, unloading about how what she had suggested wasn't going to work. I said that my mother was swamped, preoccupied, distracted, and then it happened. The thing is about my mother is that she has all these wounded birds who have really important problems, and they take all the time that she has. The silence ballooned up between us and was so loud, I couldn't hear anything else. When Mom finally spoke, her voice sounded choked. And we talked about Miss Spellman and Terry and how it's okay not to know now what I want to do with for the rest of my life. We talked about saving the whales and our 2 weeks at the shore this summer, and how someday we're going to go to Ireland. About books and movies and the time in 4th grade when I got the chicken pox and Mom got them for me. And we talked about how much we had missed talking to each other and what we could do about it. We sat there all afternoon until the lights streaking in the windows changed from yellow to a deep, burning gold, and the busboys started setting the tables for dinner. Thank you.